good afternoon everyone, and welcome back to the shop. So as you can see, it is hot in the garage. And the reason is, this is about 92 degrees outside, very high humidity. The thunderstorms roll past, but they never rain, so it never drops the humidity down. And as I said, I can't paint in this workshop when it's 92 degrees outside. And the reason is because while you're painting, you want to make sure that the paint keeps a wet edge, which means as you're drawing the gun back and forth across the side of the car and you overlap your paint strokes, you want to make sure that that paint remains wet so that when you paint over wet, the two wet paints will actually flow together and become seamless. And it's the same thing with clear coat. When you're spraying clear coat, if you're able to flow the clear coat and keep it wet, the clear coat will actually flatten itself because it can flow. And the problem is if it's so hot like this, the base coat, which is 50% reducer, is going to flash off way too quick, and I'm going to start seeing stripes in the paint. And the second thing is the clear coat at the same time, although it may not flash as quick, won't flow. And what will happen is it'll start to heat and set where it is, and I'll get a lot of orange peel, and I want that to flatten out. So we're not going to paint. Probably not for a couple of weeks. August is a bad month for that, so probably August, September, we'll start getting 20-degree days where it'll be cool, get a nice breeze going through. But in the meantime, we're building the paint booth. So the paint booth is a very simple construction. All they did is go out and mortgage the house to buy these 2x2s. The ceiling trusses are 24-inch on center, so it was very easy to just strap the ceiling with them. You can see it behind me here, right there. You can see it strapped into the ceiling. Very easy to screw it in every 24. So now I've got the top strapped. I've got the plastic stapled into that top rail. I've got tuck tape on that side to seal it to the ceiling. I have now created a couple of verticals here, and the reason they're 24 inches apart, because I'm not going to make them 24, they're probably going to be every 3 or 4 feet. But in this case, they're 24 inches apart because what I've done is I've already tuck taped in these filters. So what will happen? When I'm actually painting and I have that main fan going, I'm going to actually create a low pressure inside of this booth. And that will allow then air to come in through these filters, which means I'm going to leave the dust behind, hopefully most of it. And I'm going to be able to evacuate and all of that coming off of the car, but also try to keep the dust low in here. I'm tuck taping all the seams. I'm going to be tuck taping the bottoms. I'm going to be tuck taping the tops. I'm going to clean all the walls. I'm going to clean the ceiling. I'm going to use my air gun to try to blow every last piece of dust in the air while the fan is running. And we are going to hopefully clean this room out the best we can. But you know what? It's just too hot, as you can tell. So you know what? Let's take a road trip. I've got a bit of a surprise for you guys. And I just want to show you a car that is a real survivor. And it's got an engine that people have been talking about lately. So let's hit the road. Well, luckily enough, we didn't have to go too far. We actually had to get over to my brother's place. And I want to introduce you to a Fairlane, but this one had a very special option package when it was made. And I don't know if you guys are going to recognize that, but basically, this is a Fairlane Cobra. Now, in 1969, Ford decided they wanted to create a car, but they didn't want to use the Shelby name. So what they did is they just took the Cobra name, which they owned, and they applied it to the Fairlane. Now, they only made 14,000 of these cars back in 1969. And of that 14,000, only 6,000 were fastbacks, like this car is. And of that, only 4,000 had the 4-speed transmission. And of that, only 1,100 had the 428 Cobra jet in with the ram air. So let's take a look. All right, so there's a better shot of the fastback design. As I said, the fastbacks, just like the Mustangs, were rarer than the coupes. And being a fastback design, they also integrated these hash marks into the body line. And again, very rare. So if you're trying to find those hash marks, those are almost impossible to find. But the idea is this car is original. It has the original hash marks. It has the original body panels on this car. So a lot of the originality. And as I mentioned earlier, my brother has had this car himself for 25 years. And before that, it's never been in an accident. It's got the original metal on it. I've been under this car a number of times. It is clean. Now, the only thing we've changed a little bit is obviously we've gone to the Magnum 500 wheels. rather than the 14s. This is a very large car, right? The Fairlane is a very large body, and you don't, the 14s actually looked a little small on it, but the 15s are on it. And like I said, with the body lines the way they are, and then of course, as I mentioned earlier, on the front end of the car, you can see it has the hood scoop or the ram air, which was another rare option on the car. So the way the ram air worked on these cars, actually, this is a functional hood scoop, and it would pull high pressure air into the hood scoop. But the difference was, if we take a look underneath the hood, is there's a vacuum controlled valve on top of the air cleaner, which is integrated into the engine. So what would happen is when you were just driving along and you had normal vacuum, this would be closed, and therefore it would draw its normal air through the snorkel on the side of the air breather. But when you were accelerating and the vacuum dropped in the engine, this would open up and air would come directly from the hood scoop directly into the engine. Now these were rated at 335 horsepower, but we believe that had nothing to do with anything other than insurance. These produced more than 400 horsepower right off the factory line. In fact, 435 foot-pounds of torque. So the idea was that was all to do with insurance back then, in the 60s and 70s with insurance. Now this is a true survivor and a really original engine. The only thing had to be changed, of course, is the coil. The other coil burned out, and of course a 3-core radiator, right? Because the big 428, it produces a lot of heat, and you have to make sure you can keep that cool. Now we have all the original parts. You can put this car back the way it was when it rolled off the assembly line 50 years ago. But basically, to keep the car running, new radiator and a new coil. Other than that, the engine is the way it was. So this is a really clean example of the 428. In fact, a lot of the marks are still on this car. The original stickers are from 1969. Underneath the car, you can still see a remnant of some of the original marks that were done by the assembly crew. In fact, we've even got the original shift knob for the car. As you can see in the picture with the 4-gear, we put a different knob on it just to make it easier to shift. But basically, everything's original. We have all of the parts that we need to put this car back the way it was when it rolled off the assembly line. So like I said, I just wanted to introduce you to a 428 Cobra jet. Like I said, the original Cobra line that was launched in '69 by Ford, part of the Fairlane body lines. But like I said, all original, all the bolts are original. Like I said, a couple of changes to it just to make it more drivable, because again, you want to drive these cars, right? And that's the whole key. These don't sit in the garage, right? You drive them, and when we want, we can always put it back the way it was. But hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you hit that like button if you did. And I got to get back to the garage, and I got to finish building my paint booth. So I'll see you there.